chemotherapy taste aversions. I need to verify that you understand this. So I'm going to grab my magical blue dots. Who's going to start with the unconditioned response? Dorothy.
Sickness.
And how do you know that's unconditioned?
Because the neutral stimulus isn't like making them sick now with the chemotherapy is.
Okay, and well then you just answered the second question then. The unconditioned stimulus is chemotherapy. And you know it's unconditioned because it's unlearned. You don't have to learn to be sick from chemo. It just happens, unfortunately. So we have an unconditioned response of sick and an unconditioned stimulus of chemo. And the neutral stimulus is, Sucharita? Food. Do you have a specific food in mind? Think of one.
Cheese.
Cheese. Why? What do you have against cheese? All right, cheese.
Nothing.
And Sucharita, how do you know it's the neutral stimulus?
Because it doesn't normally make you sick.
It does not normally make you sick. Right. The acquisition process. Who's got it? Caleb.
Prepare the cheese with the chemo.
And?
That causes sickness.
And it causes sickness. If it doesn't cause sickness, then something is wrong. So cheese plus chemo equals sick. And we have a conditioned response. What's the conditioned stimulus?
Cheese.
Cheese? Only if acquisition has happened. So we have cheese here. What if cheese does not cause sickness by itself? What if you still need the cheese and the chemo? Has classical conditioning occurred? No, because it only works if cheese works by itself to cause the reaction. And don't forget, your reaction and your reaction is the same. Sick and sick. The only thing that has changed is the cause from chemo to cheese. If you were to generalize, what might happen?
All food.
All food?
And drinks.
Dairy. Oh, like dairy.
Oh, okay, there we go. All dairy. Or anything yellow. I don't know. And extinction, what would you be able to do if this whole thing went extinct? Yes, so you would be able to eat cheese without getting sick. Okay, how are we doing on that? Do we have a solution? So let's say this is happening to a young chemotherapy patient. What can we do about it?
If you eat cheese,
Eat cheese on good days?
yeah.
Why would that work?
Because then they were associated with good.
Okay, so then you would be happy because of a good day, and you would pair that with cheese. So now cheese is associated with good days instead of sickness. That could work. You also maybe could give them cheese when you know it's going to be a good day, because as you do more and more chemo, not all the time, but you have a sense of when it's going to be a good day and when it's going to be a bad day. And so if you give them cheese only on those good days, then they eventually break this, and it just becomes extinct. So they don't pair as much cheese with getting sick, so it doesn't cause this. The other thing that they do, and I think this is really, really smart, they will deliberately induce taste aversion to weird foods. So if they know that this is probably going to be a bad day with chemo, you're probably going to feel sick, they don't want to give you good foods on that day because then you might develop this taste aversion. So they'll give you weird things like licorice flavored ice cream, because you're going to be sick anyway. So it would be much better for you to pair licorice flavored ice cream and being sick than delicious chocolate ice cream and being sick, right? It's pretty smart.
I don't know, I will like feel sick, like my stomach will hurt so bad, but I'll still eat, and I'll be like, I should probably stop. But like obviously I'm gonna still eat what I wanna eat.
That's a different psychological phenomenon entirely. So maybe you would be immune to taste aversions. I don't know. Would you give me thumbs up or thumbs down? Do you want to run through another example? Do you think you got it? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
What anybody was.
Thumbs up is got it, we can move on. Thumbs down is let's do another example. Okay? All right. Good. Then we shall move on. Let's talk about operant conditioning. On the sheet that you came in with, do not, I repeat, do not, do the blanks yet. Let me do the same thing that we did with the operant, or with the classical conditioning. I'll show you the equations and that kind of stuff, and then we'll go back and do the blanks. There are three things that make operant conditioning operant conditioning. The first is you're dealing with voluntary behaviors. As opposed to classical conditioning where you're dealing with reflex or involuntary behaviors like feeling sick or feeling happy or salivating, that kind of stuff. So first is voluntary. And again, these are not in the blanks, so I recommend that you write these down at the bottom of the sheet or somewhere in your notes or something like that. The second thing that makes operant conditioning operant is that the stimulus has to come after the behavior. And if you think about rewards and punishments, it kind of makes sense. You do the behavior and then you get a cookie, or then you get slapped upside the head, or something like that. So the consequence has to come after the behavior. The third thing that you need to know is that the operant is the behavior being targeted. I have been using operant conditioning to increase participation in here. So what's the operant? The operant is participation. I may use candy or blue dots or something like that, or lavish praise upon you, something like that, but I'm trying to increase the operant, which is participation. If you're trying to train your dog to sit using treats, what is the operant? Sitting, right, it's not the treats. Good. In years past, AP psychology people have said that this unit is deceptively simple. It sounds like, well, duh, because you operate under rewards and punishments all the time. But there's a little confusing aspect to it, and if you underestimate it, you'll get a lot more questions wrong than you should. So don't underestimate it. I'm going to do this chart here, and you should write this in your notes somewhere. There's approximately, I would say, 3 steps to the process of breaking down operant conditioning. The first step is, what is my operant? Once you identify your operant, the second step is to ask yourself, do I want this to increase or decrease? If I want the operant to increase, then I'm going to be using a reinforcement. That's what a reinforcement does. It increases the operant. If I want the operant to decrease, I'm going to use a punishment. That's the definition of a punishment, something that decreases the operant. The third thing is, am I going to increase or decrease by adding or taking something away? If I add something, it's positive. If I take something away, it's negative. So don't think good and bad with positive and negative, just think math, adding and subtracting. So if we were to put this in the form of a chart, this is what it would look like. If I want to increase the operant, I'm dealing with reinforcement on the top level. If I want to decrease the operant, I'm dealing with punishment on the bottom level. My choices are to add something or take something away. This first one is simple. What would you call it? I'm adding and using reinforcement. What would you call it? In terms of positive or negative? Positive and? ER? Yeah, reinforcement, that's where we get it. So the positive means I'm adding, and the reinforcement means I'm trying to increase the operant. Over here, what would it be in this quadrant? Negative reinforcement. So I'm taking something away in order to increase the operant. Here, I'm trying to decrease the operant, so I'm using punishment, and I'm adding it, so it must be positive punishment, which sounds weird, right? This is where it gets deceptively simple. So it's positive punishment, and here it would be negative punishment. If you follow those 3 steps, you won't get sidetracked by the positive and negative stuff. Identify the operant, ask yourself, do I want to increase or decrease? That will tell you reinforcement or punishment. And then am I going to do that by adding or subtracting? That will tell you positive or negative. An example of positive reinforcement would be the candy for participating. What's the operant? Participating. And am I using positive or negative? So I must be giving something, in this case candy. So because I'm giving positive and I want to increase the operant, reinforcement. Negative reinforcement. Can you talk to your people and come up with an example? You're trying to increase an operant by taking something away. It's a little tricky, but walk yourself through. I'll interview people.
Negative reinforcement, so I would take away the students in order to increase the
Kayla's example was, what's your example?
Taking away your kid's phone to make them study.
Okay, taking away a kid's phone to make them study more. So once you follow your steps, what is the operant? Studying, and you want to increase that, so you must be dealing with reinforcement, and you're taking something away, negative. So it's negative reinforcement. Another example?
I said take the candy away that you already started giving us to make us have participate more.
Is that going to increase the operant?
Good. It's not, I don't know.
I don't know if it would be effective, but technically it fits the equation. If I'm trying to increase the operant of participation and I take the candy away, so it could. I think we need to tweak it a little bit more. Your alarm clock is a negative reinforcer. Can you figure out how? What's the operant? Getting up. So if getting up is the operant, I want to increase that, right? Well, I don't want to, but the alarm clock wants to. So that's how you know that it's reinforcement. And the way it's doing that is by removing the prospect of removing the annoying sound. Make sense? So as part of moving or removing or taking away, you could be talking about avoiding. Putting on sunblock is negative reinforcement, or it is negatively reinforced. How?
I don't know, because would it be like to get sunburned less?
Right. So if the operant is wearing sunscreen, I want that to increase. And you are going to be more likely to wear sunscreen if I remove the sunburn. And that's what sunblock does. So it's causing an increase in the operant by removing or avoiding something, in this case, sunburn. Make sense? That's a little bit tricky. You got to walk yourself through. But as long as you can identify the operant and say, yes, I want this operant to increase, and you are doing it by removing or avoiding something, then it's negative reinforcement. Positive and negative punishment sound weird, but do the same thing. So let's identify the operant of texting in class. I want to punish that very much. I want to decrease it. So if I add something, what can I add to you or give you if you text in class?
Detention.
Fine, so that was a positive punishment because I'm adding a stimulus in order to decrease the operant. What could I take away? Your phone? Sure.